Thanks for joining us here on ARC Salt Lake. I'm Brian Schnee, Monday, January 26th. Tonight we're taking a look at proposed budget cuts in education and for service providers who treat people who are disabled. But first, a look at some national funding as it pertains to immigration and customs enforcement. With that vote for funding the Department of Homeland Security happening soon, questions are growing about how enforcement is being handled with ICE. Christian Cedar reached out to Utah lawmakers to see how they're responding to recent violence in Minnesota.
With the U.S. Senate set to vote on Department of Homeland Security funding, I reached out to Utah's congressional leaders, calling and emailing their offices. I didn't get a response, but I wanted to ask where they stand on a potential government shutdown, immigration enforcement operations, and the recent violence in Minnesota. Are you concerned about a partial government shutdown? Do you support changes to immigration enforcement operations? Are you monitoring the events in Minnesota?
Are you concerned about a partial government shutdown potentially?
Partial government shutdown seems to be the norm rather than the exception anymore. It's the way we settle arguments, I guess, in Washington, D.C., is refuse to fund government operations and close them down.
Former Utah Governor Gary Herbert says shutdown threats highlight deeper leadership problems in Washington.
That just shows lack of leadership, lack of ability to work together, and it's a disappointment to me personally.
Do you support any changes on immigration enforcement operations?
I think there's certainly room for improvement.
Herbert says enforcement inside the country needs closer review to avoid escalating tensions.
The lack of due process, the overreaction. I'm not sure ICE has been trained properly for those who want to come and protest. That's a different skill set.
Christian Cedar, KUTV 2 News.
Also hearing from Governor Spencer Cox about ICE and the situation in Minnesota. On social media, he posted, "The temperature in our country is high." He said that before. With scenes of violence playing out in places like Minneapolis, we will not let that happen here. Federal efforts to enforce immigration law are welcome and necessary, and yet we must not lose sight of the transparency and accountability that Americans expect. We can secure our border, enforce the law, and protect free speech without chaos or cruelty. That's the standard Utah will hold. I believe Senator John Curtis also put out a statement today on social media. The odds of a government shutdown shot up prediction markets after Senate Democrats now say they are unlikely to pass a DHS funding bill. The death of Alex Pretty has galvanized opposition to the bill. It's also heaped on more pressure on Senate Republicans and President Trump to change tactics in the city. The Senate's 53 Republicans need the help of 7 Democrats or independents to keep the government open. A big anti-ICE protest in Park City today during the Sundance Film Festival. The demonstrators want Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to resign. While people gathered at Miners Park with signs and banners before marching down Main Street, the protest was organized by several local groups. Demonstrators say they have concerns with the federal agents who shot and killed Alex Pretty in Minnesota. There was a similar protest in Salt Lake City yesterday. Elected officials are telling K-12 schools to prepare for funding cuts from the state. This will depend on the outcome of the current legislative session, which runs through the beginning of March. In Washington County, the school district expects to see the cuts reflected in a few key programs statewide, including the arts, preschool literacy, teacher salary, and staffing. 2 News' Samantha Hoffman spoke with the district.
Well, everything plays an important role. And so like the Upstart program, that is a program that really helps preschoolers learn. And we probably, I feel like the school district utilizes that program very effectively. We have the highest testing rate for our preschoolers, the highest literacy rate, and they know their ABCs, they know their numbers, and a part of that is because of that Upstart program that they utilize. And so that would be tremendously detrimental to the school district. The Beverly Taylor Sorensen provides art and activities for the students throughout the year. And so again, that would be hard to take. Some of the other things include the teacher professional incentive, which would be a direct impact to teacher salaries.
Do you all try and make up that funding in other ways?
Not every year you can do that. It's rare that a school district has a surplus that they can adjust to compensate for cuts of this nature. We'll try where we can, but it can be a challenge. You just don't know what it's going to be. There have been rumors that they're considering cuts to the Utah Fits All scholarship, and we don't know if that'll be an issue or not, or that's the one where from the district we'd prefer to see, because that's money that goes to private schools or charters, or well, not so much charters, but private schools and homeschools. And so if they chose to cut there, that would be better for us than some of the others that directly impact our staffing.
Could you touch on one more time kind of the importance of bringing in new teachers and bringing higher paying teachers, like you said, with those higher degrees?
Anytime you can get qualified individuals, especially with the higher degrees, you're adding support and a benefit to the students in that classroom. They have new ways of teaching. They have excitement about their curriculum that they're bringing into the classroom, and that's always good for the students. If they can make learning fun and engaging, the students are going to retain and they're going to perform better. So you really want to reward teachers who are interested in their subject and get those higher degrees.
The Washington County School District preparing to have their budget cut by about 5%, as you heard there. But one program they're concerned about cutting, the Upstart program, also mentioned it is an in-home kindergarten readiness program for preschoolers. Subjects include reading, math, science, but the main focus is on reading. Waterford.org executives executes the program. We spoke with a preschool administrator about what cutting the Upstart program would mean. Take a listen.
I have tons of testimonials from preschool teachers and kindergarten teachers who can automatically tell which students are using the program at home. Their literacy knowledge is really much higher than those that are not using it. Kids are expected to go into kindergarten knowing so many skills. Previously, that wasn't the case, but more recently, the expectations are a little bit harder. On day one of kindergarten, we have a lot of students that come in and are behind because they haven't been exposed to key literacy concepts. With the state's focus on literacy, cutting programs like Waterford that really support literacy would be really hard, literacy is instrumental in being successful in life.
Yeah, as a parent of a 4-year-old, that's a weird one to try to, conceptualize here as they're talking about it. But the Utah PTA is calling on the state legislature to fully fund public education. They say cuts to art programs or mental health services are, quote, unacceptable. PTA also says funding decisions should ensure educators have the resources they need to create high-quality learning environments. Going forward, they want lawmakers to demonstrate good faith collaboration as they discuss possible cuts. The Utah Board of Higher Ed has established a 9-member committee to lead the search for the new president of Utah Valley University. The committee brings together voices from across the UVU community, including the Board of Trustees, faculty, staff, students, and community leaders. Current President Astrid Tumenez announced earlier this month that she will step down on May 1st. In Logan, Utah State University is starting a new scholarship endowment fund. It's called Utah State Promise. It's for new undergrad students who are Utah residents and Pell Grant eligible. The scholarship will cover remaining tuition and student fees. It's designed to strengthen access to higher education for students with financial need. And the school says donations are making this scholarship possible. Today is Disability Advocacy Day, and up at the Capitol, Utahns with disabilities and their families gathered for a march and a rally. This comes as the legislature is proposing a 10% budget cut to Utah disability service providers. 2 News caught up with the executive director of the Institute for Disability Research, Policy, and Practice at Utah State.
The big one is this exercise that they're going through to try to find budget reductions, and the proposed cuts to the Division of Services for People with Disabilities, I think, is the big one. And right now it looks like they're proposing a 10% cut to that, which would really just slice to the bone, I think, the services that we provide in the state. We are, of all the Western states, we have the longest wait list for services of any Western state. We have 6,000 people who are just waiting for services. Many of them have been on that list for 20, 30 years in some cases. And cutting DSPD funding is going to just make that wait so much longer. It's also going to mean that people currently in services will lose supports, and that's just not something that we can afford to do.
And let's say they go along with it.
Yeah.
10% is gone.
Yeah.
And that is a likelihood. What would be like some remedies or alternate forms of services that could be provided, or that you guys could, if you guys are even thinking, you know?
Yeah, so meaning alternatives to what they're currently getting?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's really the hard part. Although there are community organizations and others that provide services, oftentimes people with disabilities require more intensive supports that can only be provided by skilled, right, disability service providers. And so there's not really a lot of alternative options out there.
Coming up here on Arc Salt Lake, a catch-all driver law could be changed in Provo, why one attorney is trying to adjust the rule. An assistant city attorney in Provo wants to lower the penalty for their lookout law. That's the basic law in city code that tells drivers they have to keep a proper lookout for traffic, fixtures, and objects. Natalie Wattis spoke with drivers in Provo about this.
What do you think about them kind of changing the penalty?
Yeah, I do agree that a misdemeanor is a little bit high because things happen. You never know. There are blind spots for a reason. So, I mean, if it was changed down to something a little bit lower, that would probably be more beneficial because accidents happen.
Provo Assistant City Attorney Matthew Griffiths is proposing clarifying that the charge for failing to keep a proper lookout would be an infraction, no longer defaulting to a Class B misdemeanor, saying this would be more fair. I asked him via email, why are you proposing this change and why now? Was there an incident that spurred this on? It says police have been using this law as a sort of catch-all. What has this looked like? Griffiths responded, saying the goal is to align this ordinance with similar state traffic laws after a routine review of city ordinances. What are your thoughts about it?
I think it could be very beneficial, especially if police are using this catch-all to classify anything that falls into this category. If it's a straight-up misdemeanor, that's a pretty big offense for something that he wasn't sure to classify.
I reached out to the Provo Police Department about this, but was referred back to the city's legal department.
I mean, I could see it having an opposite effect where if it is the other driver's fault, like where it's not as high, people might not be as cautious on the road, but I doubt that that's probably going to happen, but there is always that risk.
Natalie Wattis, KUTV 2 News.
Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall getting ready to give her annual State of the City address. Her speech is happening tomorrow night. Mendenhall will use the speech to highlight some of her accomplishments and outline her vision for the coming year. This will be Mendenhall's 7th State of the City address since taking office in 2020. Governor Spencer Cox has his State of the State address that he gave last week. President Trump will give his State of the Union address on Tuesday, February 24th. Moving along, the Utah Geological Survey has just completed a major hazard mapping project focused on defining active faults in central Utah. This new map covers parts of 6 counties. This region is home to growing communities, vital infrastructure, and major transportation routes. Previous mapping of these faults relied primarily on aerial photographs and fieldwork, which often miss subtle fault scarps. Geologists used the new light detection and ranging data to update the mapping and understanding of these faults. A detailed site-specific investigation by a geologist is recommended before new development in an area. I've kind of been complaining about it, to be honest with you. I like winter. I moved to Utah for a reason. You get 4 real seasons. We have had one of our worst winters, and if you look at some of the data, the worst winter in Salt Lake City in terms of snowfall. Meteorologist Chase Thomason here with our first alert forecast.
The South, the Midwest, the East Coast, major winter storm over the weekend, and we just had some cold air here in northern Utah. And so far this winter season, we're still stuck at only 1/10 of an inch. So some folks in the South, in Texas, Oklahoma, have more snow than Salt Lake City. And we averaged to date just about 30 inches. So we're about 30 inches below normal. Now tonight, a few clouds rolling into northern Utah. We will stay dry. Those overnight lows not as cold. It was a cold weekend, but those temperatures are rebounding just a bit. We'll be in the mid to upper 20s. Still bundle up for tonight here along the Wasatch Front with some teens in central Utah. Tomorrow, a little bit milder as high pressure begins to move in. We'll have some sunshine out there. Should be a pretty nice day, but these temperatures, again, well above average. Will be in the mid to upper 40s in northern Utah. It's been kind of a cold day out in eastern Utah. Your temperature tomorrow, though, will be a bit milder with highs near 40 in Vernal and Price, upper 40s in central Utah and St. George at 56 degrees. So high pressure is hanging out to our southwest, begins to slide in, but there is a storm system, and it looks pretty impressive, and it is right now. There's a lot of moisture, but it will be weakening significantly, but it does look a tad stronger, so I've added a little bit of snow to our forecast on Wednesday. So here we are tomorrow afternoon. You'll see those mostly sunny skies, and with high pressure sliding in briefly, those temperatures will be warming up. Now, as we head into your Wednesday, we are dry, but notice the cloud cover gets a little bit thicker, where we'll have a little bit of snow Wednesday morning. We'll be out in northeastern Nevada, so Elko, a couple light snow showers are possible. The storm system rolls into northern Utah, so central southern Utah likely going to stay dry, and this is going to be a fast-moving storm only lasting a few hours. Right now, the latest timing is about from 2 to 5 o'clock, where we could see a couple light snow showers, especially in the mountains. We'll see if we get maybe a few flurries in the valleys, and then by Wednesday night, we are drying things out. Not going to be a big snowmaker. I mean, we're just begging for a big winter storm. It has been very quiet these last couple weeks, but we could see maybe 1 to 4 inches in the mountains of northern Utah. If we're lucky, a dusting to maybe an inch in some some of our valleys north of Salt Lake City. Now, the good news with this storm system is going to keep the atmosphere mixed. We are forecasting some pretty decent air quality for the rest of the work week. We might have some moderate air for tomorrow, but likely no strong inversions developing quite yet until we end up into the weekend, because high pressure again slides in from the southwest, keeping us very mild and very dry. But we'll likely see that haze develop over the weekend and into early next week, and an even stronger ridge of high pressure could be building in for the middle of next week. So we are warm and dry out west, with the cold active weather staying out east. St. George, we are in the mid to upper 50s for the rest of the work week, but we're into the 60s as we head into the weekend. A lot of sunshine, but maybe a few clouds passing by, especially over the weekend and into early next week. But it is a very mild and dry forecast down in southern Utah. Salt Lake 48 for tomorrow. We dip to 42 on Wednesday with that weak storm. But here comes that haze Friday and into the weekend. But look at those temperatures climb more than 10 degrees above average in the low 50s Saturday, Sunday, and on Monday.
The Super Bowl of Caring. Brought to you by America First Credit Union, Smith's, Tech City, Ford, Balance of Nature, and Rocky Mountain Power.
You can help end child hunger in Utah with our Super Bowl of Caring. Grab your phone right now, scan the QR code on your screen, or go to KUTV.com/donate for more information on how to donate. Just $10 can help feed a child for a weekend. Still ahead here tonight, a Hawaiian volcano has erupted. What a scientist has to say about all the debris that fell from the sky. Oh boy, trending now, videos out of Hawaii giving us a better idea of just how large the most recent Kilauea eruption was. No thank you. On your screen, a time lapse from Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. I do think it's fascinating. The volcano erupted just after 11 o'clock on Saturday. Hazardous conditions from debris there forced officials to close the park to visitors. On top of that, portions of Hawaii Highway 11 were also closed. The USGS says that the eruption caused large chunks of rock to fall from the sky.
The peak happened a little bit around 12:30 in the afternoon. And we were actually driving through Volcano at that time, and there were blocks that were over 6 inches just falling down and hitting the road in the middle of the traffic. The road was pretty much covered around the town of Volcano with all this debris falling out of the sky.
Yeah, I mean, town of Volcano, volcano erupting, maybe just turn around. Lava fountains from the eruption were measured as high as 1,640 feet. I think it would be fascinating to see it in person, though. Thanks for joining us tonight. Speaking of fascinating, they'll let us come back tomorrow at 7.